Welcome to Quicksand, the most important news in pharma and biotech this week. FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb announced that a web platform to help patients find information on clinical trials for cancer drugs would be expanded to include orphan disease drugs. The decision follows a House Energy and Commerce Committee hearing last month on a bill that passed the Senate in August and seeks to speed and increase access to experimental therapies for terminally ill patients. In written comments to the House Committee, Gottlieb said, "If enacted without changes, sponsors and other persons providing eligible investigational drugs to eligible patients under the specified conditions of the bill would not be subject to a number of sections of the FD&C Act and FDA regulations related to clinical trials, pre-market approval, and labeling. The current language in S204 may therefore preclude FDA from taking enforcement actions based on those provisions." Critics of the bill also note that it would not require companies developing these investigational treatments to provide them to patients, which is usually the rate-limiting step in accessing the potential drugs, as FDA has approved more than 99% of all expanded access requests it receives. Gottlieb said in a blog post, "FDA is widening the scope of the new Expanded Access Navigator tool, a comprehensive online information resource maintained by the nonprofit Reagan-Udall Foundation to facilitate pre-approval access to drugs. Previously, this tool was rolled out for drugs that treat cancer. It will now apply to drugs that treat orphan diseases." The FDA finalized its guidance on the system for formally disputing scientific or medical issues between a sponsor and the agency. While the guidance remains largely similar to the agency's revised draft version issued in September 2015, FDA says it has provided clarifications on several issues and updated the guidance to reflect changes to its dispute resolution goals for generic drugs under the reauthorized Generic Drug User Fee Amendments, or GDUFA II. Under the first iteration of GDUFA, FDA only committed to aspire to respond to a dispute related to a generic drug submission within 30 days of receiving a written appeal, whereas GDUFA II sets specific goals for the percentage of disputes above the division level the agency will respond to within 30 days. According to FDA, the final guidance also clarifies that the formal dispute resolution process described within applies only to disputes between sponsors and the agency and does not apply to other individuals or entities that wish to dispute an issue with the agency. Additionally, the final guidance explains that agency communications such as meeting minutes or general advice letters are not appropriate for formal dispute resolution, as sponsors are not bound to follow those communications and have other avenues outside formal dispute resolution to discuss such advice, such as Type C guidance meetings for new drugs or Type 2 meetings for biosimilars. The European Medicines Agency released for consultation a new guideline to help companies develop new medicines, direct-acting antiviral agents, monoclonal antibodies, and vaccines to treat and prevent infections caused by the respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV. According to EMA, RSV is a common respiratory virus that usually causes mild cold-like symptoms that most recover from, though RSV can be serious, especially in infants and older adults. Currently, there is no specific vaccine and only a few treatments available for RSV, though several medicines are in development. The draft guideline focuses on assessment of safety and efficacy of vaccines and medicines in people most likely to develop RSV, lower respiratory tract infection, and severe RSV disease, including newborns, infants, toddlers, and older children, as well as people over 65 years who are likely to develop severe RSV disease. Parts of the guideline also address the vaccination of pregnant women with the aim of preventing RSV disease in their babies once they are born. Other sections discuss study design, how to assess the efficacy of a vaccine in different scenarios, and the selection of the recommended dose regimen for medicines. The draft also proposes considerations on non-clinical investigations of efficacy and risk of vaccine-associated enhanced disease to support clinical trials with preventive or therapeutic products directed at RSV. Australia's Therapeutic Goods Administration is planning to tighten oversight of autologous cell and tissue products. TGA's proposed changes will bring some therapies under the biologicals regulatory framework, ban direct-to-consumer advertising, and generally move Australia more in line with the US and the EU. Autologous cell and tissue products are therapies based on materials taken from and administered to the same patient. Historically, TGA has seen such therapies as part of medical practice and left the sector to regulate itself. The rise of direct-to-consumer advertising of unproven cell therapies and safety concerns tied to how the materials are manipulated have forced TGA to reevaluate its position. The proposal put forward by TGA reflects these concerns. TGA plans to ban direct advertising of autologous cell and tissue products to consumers, much as it prohibits the promotion of medicines already. However, the agency will leave facilities free to promote services, provided they make no mention of specific products. That graduated approach to regulatory oversight is evident in other parts of the proposals. TGA will exempt from regulation products that are made in a hospital by a healthcare professional for the treatment of a patient in their care. All other products will be regulated by TGA to some extent. Products that are made and used outside an accredited hospital, undergo more than minimal manipulation, or are intended for non-homologous use will fall under the biological regulatory framework. TGA is proposing an intermediate level of regulation for products that fall between these extremes, such as those that are minimally manipulated. The agency will introduce regulation for these products but offer exemptions from some requirements. The FDA opened for comment a newly revised International Council for Harmonization guideline intended to better align the choice of statistical methods with questions of regulatory importance and to improve the reliability of decisions about and representations of the effects of medical products. The 31-page draft guidance, according to FDA, clarifies, updates, and extends the earlier ICH guidance titled E9 Statistical Principles for Clinical Trials in two main areas. Concerning estimands, it provides a framework for discussion of how the aims of a trial relate to the proposed statistical analysis. Concerning sensitivity analysis, it discusses how to use additional analyses to address concerns about the validity of assumptions underlying the main analysis, the agency said in a Federal Register notice. The draft guidance looks to align the choice of statistical methods with the goals of a clinical trial, to communicate the rationale for such choices to FDA, and on using sensitivity analysis to characterize the robustness of the conclusions to plausible deviations from the assumptions of the main analysis. Thank you for listening to Quicksand, Episode 4, November 6th, 2017.